In the early years of humanity's expansion into the galaxy, Earth's representatives were not a force to be reckoned with. The Terran fleet, though advanced, was small, and their military was outclassed by other, more established races in the universe. Despite their technological prowess, they were often seen as weak, uncoordinated and inexperienced on the galactic stage. It wasn't just the vastness of space that worked against them. It was the constant underestimation by other species, who dismissed humanity as insignificant. The insect-like T-Rex, with their exoskeletal strength and hive-mind intelligence, laughed at human tactics. The humanoid Zon, a race of cold, calculating strategists, viewed the Terrans as nothing more than a passing inconvenience. Even the once allied, peaceful Sorrel believed that humanity's aggression was misguided, deeming it a fleeting phase that would eventually burn itself out. And so, the humans struggled. Every battle was a struggle, every diplomatic meeting was an uphill climb, and they were pushed into corners by enemies who thought them too small to matter. The harsh realities of space were shaping them, molding them into something different, something more dangerous than anyone could ever predict. Then, one fateful day, everything changed. It started with the Zon. The cold strategists had long been in the process of expanding their empire, aiming to push the boundaries of their influence even further. With an iron grip on the galaxy's most valuable trade routes, they grew bolder. A routine supply mission meant to secure resources from a neutral zone was attacked. The attackers? The Zon, whose fleet had miscalculated humanity's resolve. This was not the first time the Zon had struck against human interests, but this time it was different. The humans fought back with a vengeance that no one had ever anticipated. Ships that were considered outdated and overrun with repairs were suddenly swarming the Zon fleets, launching surprise attacks from unpredictable angles. There was something about their approach, an unorthodox, reckless aggression, that baffled the Zon commanders. Instead of falling into predictable patterns, the humans fought like they were desperate, their tactics erratic yet effective, always with a relentless drive that was impossible to match. It wasn't just strategy, it was raw emotion, a hunger for survival that radiated from every Terran soldier and pilot. As the battle waged on, a key moment occurred, a moment that would set the stage for the rise of humanity as the galaxy's most feared warriors. The human flagship, the Fury, broke through the Zon's defenses and executed a daring maneuver, crashing into the heart of the Zon fleet. The explosion rocked the battlefield, taking down more Zon ships than anyone could have thought possible. The Zon were stunned. The humans had taken a page out of their own book and used the element of surprise to full advantage. It was a costly victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. The news of the battle spread like wildfire through the galaxy. It wasn't just a victory for humanity, it was a warning. A new player had entered the galactic stage, and they were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. What followed was a series of retaliatory attacks, not from one race, but many. The Zon, embarrassed by their defeat, rallied their allies. The T-Rex, once smug in their superiority, now turned their attention to Earth's colonies, testing their might. The Sorrel, watching from the sidelines, began to question their long-standing alliance with the humans. But humanity, tired of being underestimated, had already begun to adapt. The victory at the Zon trade routes was the first crack in the wall of galactic indifference. The Terrans had shown that they were no longer simply weaklings, they were wild, unpredictable, and, most terrifying of all, capable of winning against all odds. The leaders of the human colonies knew something had shifted, that the universe had just witnessed a crucial turning point. They weren't going to hide any longer. Humanity's fearlessness had awakened something deep within them. It wasn't just the strength of their military or their technology that was growing, it was their determination, their refusal to back down. As they prepared for the battles ahead, humanity realized that they had only scratched the surface of their potential. The galaxy had underestimated them, but they would soon come to know that they were not the weaklings of the universe anymore. They were the storm. And now, it was time to unleash it. In the aftermath of their victory against the Zon, humanity faced a reality far harsher than they could have imagined. Their sudden rise to prominence had put them directly in the crosshairs of every major power in the galaxy. The Zon, embarrassed but relentless, had already begun to regroup, calling for reinforcements from their allies. The Tyrrix, ever the opportunists, could sense weakness in their rivals and were eager to capitalize on humanity's growing reputation. And then there were the Sorrel, the once trusted allies who now questioned their bond with Earth, fearing the unpredictability that came with humanity's newfound aggressiveness. Humanity had no choice but to act quickly. With their fleet still recovering from the battle at the Zon trade routes, Earth's leaders sought out unlikely allies, races who had once viewed humanity with indifference or even disdain. This was no longer a time for politics, it was a time for survival. The first step was to reach out to the Tkar, a nomadic race of ancient warriors known for their brutal combat techniques. Though isolated from galactic politics, the Tkar had earned respect for their deadly precision in battle, and their technology, while not as advanced as the Zon or Tyrrix, was revered for its effectiveness in the heat of combat. Human emissaries, led by the resourceful Admiral Sofia Ramirez, made the first move. The Tkar had no love for the Zon or Tyrrix, as both races had made attempts to dominate them in the past. The Tkar were not easily swayed by promises or diplomacy, but they respected strength and willpower, and in Admiral Ramirez, they saw something they could relate to, a leader willing to fight, not just negotiate. The alliance was forged not through peace talks, but through the demonstration of shared resolve. The humans did not ask for help. They demanded it, not in words but in actions. As the Tkar watched, the humans launched an offensive against a group of Zon raiders attempting to raid a distant colony. The humans' tactics were brutal, yet effective, and the Tkar saw a glimpse of what they had missed, an ally who didn't shy away from battle. The Tkar offered their support, but only on their terms. They would not fight in traditional ways, nor would they follow human tactics. Instead, they would teach humanity their ways, how to use fear and deception to break their enemies before engaging in combat. They would become one with their environment, striking from the shadows and using the terrain to their advantage. The alliance between the Tkar and humanity was not without tension, but it was effective. The first joint operation was a massive raid against a Tyrrix outpost on the edge of the galaxy. The Tyrrix had grown overconfident, thinking their insectoid fleets could easily crush the weak humans. What they didn't expect was the human ingenuity combined with the Tkara's stealth and savagery. The battle was swift and brutal. The Tyrrix were caught off guard, and their forces, despite their superior numbers, were systematically picked apart. The humans and Tkar moved as one, a deadly force of nature. The Tyrrix had never seen anything like it, a relentless storm of humans fighting with unyielding ferocity, backed by the silent, lethal warriors of the Tkar who struck from the darkness. The battle was a turning point for humanity. Not only did they emerge victorious, but they did so in a way that sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The message was clear: humanity was no longer to be underestimated. They were not just survivors, they were capable of striking fear into the hearts of even the most powerful empires. But this victory came at a cost. The Zon, furious over their defeat, swore vengeance. The Tyrrix, now fully aware of the Terran's potential, began to regroup, rallying their forces for a counteroffensive. And the Sorrel, observing from the sidelines, found themselves torn between their loyalty to humanity and their fear of what humanity might become. The galaxy was on the brink of a new war, and humanity was at the center of it. Their strength was no longer in their numbers, but in their unyielding will to fight and their ability to forge alliances with those who shared their vision of survival. It was a lesson that no one could ignore: humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and they had just begun to show the universe what they were capable of. With the unexpected alliance between humanity and the Tkar secured, Earth's military leadership knew they had gained a powerful edge in their struggle for survival. The combined forces of human ingenuity and Tkar stealth made for a potent force, but the success of their campaigns came at a price. As they pushed deeper into enemy territories, the Terrans began to lose a sense of the boundaries that once defined them. Humanity had always been about more than just survival, it was about progress, about exploration and reaching for the stars. But now, the thirst for victory was beginning to cloud their original goals. Earth's leaders, once motivated solely by the need to protect their people, now found themselves grappling with the idea that perhaps their survival came with a far darker consequence: they were becoming as ruthless as the enemies they once feared. Admiral Sofia Ramirez, once a symbol of hope and leadership, began to feel the weight of the choices she had made. The first victory against the Zon had sparked something in her, something that was both exhilarating and terrifying. She had been praised for her boldness, her refusal to accept defeat, but now the cost of those actions was becoming apparent. The human fleets were growing more aggressive, more calculated. The Tkar had taught them how to strike from the shadows, to sow fear and chaos among their enemies. But each success left humanity feeling more detached from the peaceful ideals that had once defined their civilization. The lines between right and wrong began to blur. Meanwhile, back on Earth, political factions started to rise in opposition to the war. Though humanity's newfound strength was undeniable, there were those who questioned whether the path they were on was worth the sacrifice. Some called for peace negotiations with the Zon, the Tyrix, and even the Sorrel. But the response was swift. Those who questioned the war were labeled as traitors, and their calls for diplomacy were drowned out by the roar of war. Humanity's military machine, once seen as weak, was now growing stronger with each passing day. New alliances formed with other smaller races who sought protection from the larger galactic powers, and soon, Earth found itself at the center of a network of coalitions. The human fleet expanded rapidly, with newly built warships, highly advanced weapons, and soldiers who had been trained in the brutal methods of their Tkar allies. Yet, in their pursuit of victory, they had made enemies, powerful enemies. The Zon, embarrassed by their earlier defeat, had regrouped, and now they were preparing to launch a full-scale assault on humanity's homeworld. Their fleets were vast and their warships formidable, far more than humanity had ever faced before. The Tyrix, too, had rallied their forces, intent on showing the galaxy that no species could defy them without consequences. Their insectoid armies were vast, their bioengineered war machines terrifying. They would not rest until humanity had been driven to the brink of extinction. And then there were the Sorrel. The peaceful race that had once considered humanity their allies now found themselves unsure of where they stood. They feared what the Terrans had become. The unpredictability, the unrelenting desire for conquest, it was something that had once been the hallmark of their enemies, not their friends. It was then that Admiral Ramirez faced a crossroads. She had built a formidable force, and humanity had won battles that no one thought possible. But in doing so, she had lost something precious, something she could not name. The war had changed them all. The question now was whether humanity could reclaim what they had lost, or if they had become the very monsters they had once feared. With the Zon fleet closing in and the Tyrix threatening to invade, humanity's options were dwindling. Peace seemed impossible, and the path to victory was paved with bloodshed. Would they continue to forge ahead, embracing the ruthless strategies that had brought them this far? Or would they turn back, before it was too late, and risk losing everything? As the galaxy watched, the Terrans had become more than just a symbol of strength, they had become a warning. In their rise, they had awakened something within themselves that could never be undone. The Zon fleet arrived sooner than expected, a vast armada with hundreds of warships stretching across the stars. They had been waiting for the right moment, preparing to make humanity pay for their defiance, to remind the galaxy that the Zon were not to be trifled with. But the humans, fueled by desperation and their relentless drive to survive, weren't going to simply fold. Admiral Sofia Ramirez stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, one of the flagship vessels of the Terran fleet, as the battle unfolded in real time. The Zon fleet had already begun positioning themselves near Earth's orbit, their ships forming an impenetrable wall of firepower. Their strategy was clear: blockade the planet, cut off communication, and starve humanity into submission. Ramirez knew the odds were against them. Earth's defenses, while advanced, were no match for the sheer scale of the Zon invasion. But humanity had learned from its previous battles. The element of surprise, a tactic they had perfected with their Tkar allies, was their only hope. Ramirez had one chance to strike before the Zon could tighten their grip. The plan was risky, but it was the only option left. With an unyielding determination, she gave the order: the fleet would break through the Zon blockade, forcing their way through the heart of the invasion. As the Vanguard and its accompanying ships plunged into the vast Zon formation, chaos erupted. Terran ships surged forward with terrifying speed, their weapons blazing, cutting through the Zon defenses with surgical precision. The humans weren't fighting as soldiers, they were fighting as predators. The unexpected ferocity of their attack sent shockwaves through the Zon ranks. They had never seen this side of humanity, not this reckless, bloodthirsty drive to win at all costs. For every Zon warship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place, but the humans never faltered. Their unorthodox tactics, honed through years of hardship, caught the Zon off guard again and again. Instead of traditional engagement patterns, Terran ships moved like shadows, attacking in unexpected bursts, then retreating into the void, only to strike again when the Zon believed they were safe. It was a strategy the Zon were ill-prepared for, nothing like the calculated warfare they were used to. Meanwhile, on the ground, Earth's colonies were in turmoil. The invasion had already begun, with Zon forces landing on several key settlements across the planet's surface. For the first time since humanity's rise to prominence, the war was now personal. It was no longer just about territory or power, it was about the very survival of the species. The world watched as humanity, who had once been considered weak, fought with the fury of a species determined not to be erased from the stars. The Terran ground forces, backed by new technologies and brutal combat techniques, pushed back Zon invaders with relentless aggression. They fought tooth and nail, armed with cutting-edge weapons and strategies drawn from their Tkar allies. No ground was too sacred, no position too fortified to be taken. But the tide of war was not entirely in humanity's favor. The Zon were fierce, and their tactics, though more traditional, were effective. As humanity began to win battles in space, the ground war became a deadly stalemate. The Zon had entrenched themselves in the planet's major cities, setting up defenses that even the humans' most advanced technology struggled to breach. At the same time, the Tyrix forces had begun their own offensive, attacking human colonies on the far edges of the galaxy. The Tyrix, with their insectoid legions and overwhelming numbers, sought to crush humanity's alliances with the Tkar and isolate Earth from the growing coalition of smaller races that had joined their cause. The Sorrel, too, had made their move, though they hesitated, caught between their fear of humanity's unrelenting aggression and their desire to preserve peace. They had offered to mediate, but their message was clear: humanity's rise to power was now threatening the delicate balance of the galaxy. It was time for Earth to decide: would they stand alone and become the galaxy's greatest threat, or would they attempt to reconcile their violent rise with the peaceful principles they had once held dear? Admiral Ramirez faced the hardest decision of her life. The battle in space was a victory, but at what cost? The Zon were not going to stop until they had Earth's blood on their hands. The Tyrix were relentless, and the Sorrel's growing unease was a warning sign that Earth's alliances could fracture at any moment. It was then that Ramirez realized that humanity had become more than just warriors, they had become a force of nature. And though they had won battles, they were at a crossroads. Would they continue to push forward, embracing the war-driven tactics that had brought them this far, or would they seek a path to peace that could save them from themselves? The choice loomed large, and the fate of the galaxy now rested in humanity's hands. Humanity's victories had come at an unforeseen price. As the Zon and Tyrix forces continued their brutal campaigns, Earth found itself trapped between the pressure of galactic war and the weight of its own moral decline. Each battle fought, each city captured or lost, left humanity asking the same question: was it all worth it? The once unyielding pride and ambition that had fueled their rise to power now started to feel like a dangerous addiction. They were becoming a galaxy-wide force to be reckoned with, but at what cost? Admiral Sofia Ramirez stood in her war room, studying the holographic map of the galaxy. The human fleet had held strong in space, pushing back the Zon for now, but the situation on Earth's surface was far from resolved. The Tyrix were relentless, and their insectoid swarms had begun to overrun several key colonies on the fringes of human-held space. Worse, their bioengineered war machines were proving difficult to counter, even with the combined might of human and Tkar forces. Every skirmish felt like a gamble, one they were fast running out of chips to play with. The Tyrix were too organized, too ruthless. They were methodical in their destruction, using both biological and technological warfare to wear humanity down piece by piece. As the Tyrrix continued their invasion, humanity's alliances started to feel frayed. The Sorrel, still hesitant about Earth's newfound aggression, had begun pulling away. They feared that the Terrans were too far gone, that they would become just another oppressive empire. The Tkar, though still loyal to their human partners, were starting to wonder if their alliance with humanity was worth the mounting bloodshed. It was clear that the Terrans' thirst for victory was beginning to eclipse their original mission to protect their species. Ramirez had only one option left, an audacious, near-suicidal gamble that could either save Earth or bring about its total annihilation. She had learned of a long-forgotten weapon, an ancient alien relic, hidden deep within the core of a dying star at the edge of the galaxy. It was rumored to be capable of turning the tide of any war. It was a technology so powerful that no one dared to seek it out, not because it was too dangerous, but because no one knew if it would even work. The weapon, if it existed, was called the Judicator. It was said to harness the raw power of the stars themselves, a weapon capable of obliterating entire fleets in an instant. But the journey to retrieve it was treacherous beyond imagination. The dying star was surrounded by an impenetrable asteroid field, littered with remnants of ancient battles. The star itself was unstable, its gravitational pull unpredictable. Navigating through it would require not just superior technology but also pure, unadulterated luck. It was a risk Ramirez knew she had to take. Humanity's fleet was already stretched thin, and Earth's colonies were on the verge of collapse. If she failed, the Terrans would lose everything. But if she succeeded, the Judicator would grant humanity the power to wipe out their enemies in one fell swoop. Ramirez wasted no time in organizing a mission to retrieve the weapon. She chose the most experienced pilots and strategists from the fleet, including Captain Elias Ward, a brilliant tactician who had once been a protege of hers. Together, they would lead a strike force of stealth ships, making their way to the dying star. As the mission was launched, the rest of the human fleet held the line against the Zon and Tyrrix forces. But they were growing weaker by the hour. The Judicator was humanity's last hope. The journey through the asteroid field was nothing short of harrowing. The Terran fleet had to navigate through fields of debris, some of which had been in orbit for centuries. Asteroids collided with each other in violent explosions, while the radiation from the dying star warped space itself. Despite the danger, the Terrans pressed forward, using their most advanced ships to keep their distance from the star's unstable core while searching for the relic. As the strike force finally neared the center of the asteroid field, they encountered something unexpected, an ancient alien structure, partially hidden within the swirling chaos of the star's magnetic field. It was massive, resembling a fortress built into the heart of the dying star. This was no ordinary relic, this was a place of untold power, protected by an ancient race that had long since disappeared. But the moment the Terran fleet moved in closer, the galaxy itself seemed to fight back. The stars around them flickered, and the very fabric of spacetime began to warp. It was as if the universe was rejecting their intrusion. Suddenly, an entire armada of alien warships, ancient and forgotten, their technology unlike anything humanity had ever seen, emerged from the shadows of the dying star. They were the guardians of the Judicator, and they would not allow anyone to wield its power. The final, desperate gamble had just become an all-out battle for survival. The ancient warships appeared like specters, their designs sleek and alien, shimmering with energy that seemed to draw power from the dying star itself. They had been waiting, lying dormant for centuries, guarding the relic that could reshape the galaxy. The Terran strike force, still reeling from the unexpected appearance of these sentinels, had no choice but to engage. Admiral Ramirez's voice echoed through the command deck of the Vanguard as the battle unfolded. All ships, brace for impact. Engage evasive maneuvers, our mission hasn't changed. We fight for humanity's survival. The first shots were fired, and the difference in firepower was immediate. The alien warships were unlike anything the Terrans had ever faced. Their shields absorbed the brunt of humanity's attacks, while their weapons seemed to slice through Terran armor with brutal precision. In mere moments, the Terran fleet was at a severe disadvantage, outclassed by the older, more advanced technology of the Guardians. But Admiral Ramirez had not survived this long in the war by making conventional choices. Instead of retreating, she did the unthinkable. She called for a full-on assault, intending to draw the Guardians away from the heart of the ancient structure. She knew that the Judicator would be useless if the Sentinels kept it locked away, and the only way to secure humanity's future was to make sure no one else could claim the weapon. The battle raged on, and for the first time since the conflict began, Ramirez felt the crushing weight of humanity's moral dilemma. Every move they made felt like a step closer to their own extinction. It was a fight for survival, but it was also a fight against their own darkening nature. Each blast fired, each life lost in the chaos, only reminded them that in the pursuit of power, they had lost part of what made them human. Meanwhile, Captain Elias Ward and his team infiltrated the fortress-like structure that housed the Judicator. The walls of the facility were lined with strange symbols, pulsating with energy, as though the very building was alive. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the relic sanctum, the team was struck by a profound sense of dread. The Judicator was no mere weapon, it was a key, a relic of a civilization long gone, designed not only to destroy but to alter the very balance of life in the galaxy. Ward's team reached the core of the structure. There, within a chamber of shifting light and energy, lay the Judicator. It was a vast, crystalline entity, suspended in the center of the room, humming with raw, unfathomable power. The closer they got, the more they could feel the energy reverberating in their bones. It was like nothing they had ever felt before, pure, unfiltered energy, both beautiful and terrifying. But before they could activate it, the Guardians descended upon them with relentless force. The Sentinels moved like shadows, their weapons deadly and their speed unparalleled. In the ensuing chaos, Ward's team fought valiantly, but they were outmatched. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, Ward made a decision that would change everything. He activated the relic. The chamber around them erupted in a blinding flash of light. The Judicator surged to life, and a wave of energy rippled outward, engulfing the entire battlefield. In an instant, the alien Guardians were overwhelmed, their ships torn apart by the raw power emanating from the relic. The wave of energy didn't just damage their vessels, it rewrote the very fabric of space around them, tearing apart the very systems that sustained their ships. The Guardians' technology was incompatible with the power of the Judicator, and they were undone in mere moments. The Terran fleet, caught in the aftermath of the explosion, was momentarily stunned. But as the dust cleared and the energy subsided, they saw something they had never expected. The Zon and Tyrix fleets, locked in their own battle above Earth, were also disintegrating, their ships caught in the cascading effect of the Judicator's power. Humanity had become the ultimate force in the galaxy. But the victory was bittersweet. Admiral Ramirez, watching the destruction unfold from her command deck, realized that while humanity had gained unimaginable power, it came at the cost of everything they had worked for. The Judicator had altered the course of history, but it had also irrevocably changed humanity. The line between survival and tyranny had blurred beyond recognition. As the Terran fleet regrouped, Ramirez knew there would be no going back. They had won the war, but the Judicator had awakened something in them, something they could no longer control. The universe, now at humanity's mercy, was forever changed. The question that remained was not whether humanity would rule, but how they would rule. The destruction was total. The Zon and Tyrix fleets, once formidable empires in their own right, were nothing more than debris floating in the cold expanse of space. The Judicator had reshaped the galaxy in an instant, its unimaginable power now a permanent scar across the universe. For humanity, it was a victory unlike any other, but it was also a revelation, a reckoning. Admiral Sofia Ramirez stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring out at the remnants of the battlefield. The Zon homeworld, once a symbol of their dominance, had been reduced to a burning ruin. Tyrix forces scattered, their unity shattered by the sheer force of the Judicator's blast. Earth's defenses were secure, but the universe was forever altered. Humanity had won, but now, they were the most powerful species in existence. What came next? Ramirez knew the answer wasn't simple. She had seen the toll the war had taken on her crew, on the soldiers, the families, and the civilians who had fought tooth and nail for this moment. The path they had walked, born from desperation, bloodshed, and unrelenting aggression, was no longer a path to survival. It was a path to power, and power, she knew, could corrupt even the noblest of ideals. Humanity had gained a fearsome reputation across the galaxy, and the Tkar, once allies, now watched Earth with wary eyes. The Sorrel had pulled back entirely, and many smaller races feared what Earth would become in the aftermath of the Judicator's awakening. Would they be conquerors? Tyrants? Or would they rebuild their fractured alliances and try to reclaim the values that had once made them human? At the same time, within the inner halls of Earth's leadership, there were those who saw the potential of the Judicator and its power. Political factions began to rise, pushing for the weapon's continued use, hoping to extend humanity's reach into every corner of the galaxy. They argued that with such power, humanity could ensure peace, by force, if necessary. To them, this was the final step in securing Earth's place as the galaxy's dominant force. But Admiral Ramirez wasn't sure. She stood at the crossroads of humanity's destiny, uncertain of the road ahead. She had seen how quickly the thirst for power could overshadow ideals, how a single decision could lead to the downfall of everything they had built. The Judicator had given them victory, but at what cost? Her mind drifted back to Captain Elias Ward, the hero of the mission, now recovering in Earth's medical bay. Ward had been the first to recognize the danger the Judicator posed, yet he had activated it anyway. He had seen that there were no easy answers, that to defeat the Guardians and protect humanity, they had to make an impossible choice. The more Ramirez thought about it, the clearer it became. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology, its weapons, or its alliances, it was its capacity for choice. The choices they made now would define the next era of humanity, for better or for worse. And so, a new era began. Earth's leaders convened in a historic summit, with Ramirez as the central figure. The Judicator was not destroyed, but its power was locked away, hidden, sealed, and monitored, to prevent any faction from using it recklessly again. It was a symbol of humanity's potential, both magnificent and terrifying. In the days that followed, the war-torn galaxy began to heal. Small races that had once feared humanity now came to the table, seeking dialogue instead of conflict. The Tkar, while still cautious, agreed to an alliance of mutual defense. And the Sorrel, seeing the humanity in their former allies, slowly came back into the fold, urging Earth to remember the values they had once fought to preserve. The road ahead was still uncertain. Earth would never be the same. The shadow of the Judicator loomed large, but humanity had chosen not to wield it for conquest. Instead, they chose to embrace the lessons learned from their near destruction, to rebuild their society not on the foundation of fear and power, but on the ideals of cooperation, growth, and peace. As the stars glittered in the distance, Admiral Ramirez knew one thing with certainty: the future was still unwritten. Humanity had won the war, but it was now up to them to prove that they were worthy of their victory. And in the quiet moments, as she gazed at the stars that had once seemed so distant, she believed that the best path forward wasn't one of conquest, but of redemption. The galaxy had seen what humanity could become. Now, they would see what humanity chose to be.